The ship Aurora drifted quietly through the emptiness of space. Its silver hull reflected the light of a distant star, and inside, the crew moved with steady focus. The mission was simple: survey uncharted systems, map asteroid belts, and test new scanners. Nothing about this trip was supposed to be exciting. Commander Ryan sat in the command chair, watching the endless black of space on the wide viewing screen. He had been through years of routine patrols, and most days felt the same. But then, something changed. "Commander," said Myra, the ship's communications officer. "I am picking up something unusual." Ryan leaned forward. "Unusual how?" "It is a signal," Myra replied, fingers moving quickly across her console. "Very faint. Almost buried under cosmic background noise. It does not match any known beacon in our database." Ryan frowned. "A distress signal?" Myra hesitated. "Possibly. It is repeating at regular intervals. The structure looks like an emergency call, but the encoding is strange. Part of it sounds like human language. The rest, alien." The bridge grew quiet. Even the hum of the ship's systems felt louder as the crew exchanged uneasy glances. "Play it," Ryan ordered. A thin, static-filled voice filled the room. The words broke apart, mixed with alien syllables and painful distortion. Yet beneath the noise, everyone recognized fragments of human speech. "Help, colony, attacked, no escape, if anyone hears," the message cut out, replaced by a high-pitched tone. Then it repeated again, and again. The crew shifted in their seats. No one spoke at first. The weight of the sound pressed down on them. Ryan finally broke the silence. "How old is this transmission?" Myra checked her readouts. "Judging by the signal decay, at least 30 years. Maybe longer. It is bouncing across systems, weakening with every pass. But someone wanted it to last." Lieutenant Omar, the navigator, turned in his chair. "Sir, this could be a trap. Pirates have used fake distress calls before to lure ships." Ryan nodded slowly. "That is true. But this does not sound like a fake. Whoever sent this was desperate." "Coordinates?" Ryan asked. Myra answered, "It originates from a barren moon on the edge of the Dirion system. There are no active colonies listed there. Official records say the area is uninhabited." "Uninhabited," Ryan repeated. "And yet we hear voices crying for help." The commander stood, hands clasped behind his back as he walked across the bridge. His thoughts raced. A part of him wanted to move on, report the signal, and continue their mission. But another part of him, stronger and louder, refused to ignore it. Humanity had spread across the stars for one reason: survival through unity. To ignore a call for help was against everything Ryan believed. "Set a course," Ryan said firmly. "We follow the signal." The engines of the Aurora flared to life, and the ship changed direction. Hours passed as they approached the Dirion system. The crew grew restless. The signal played in the background, repeating the same broken phrases. Every repetition carved deeper into their minds. Myra adjusted the filters again and again, pulling out fragments of meaning. At last, she reported, "Commander, I have reconstructed more of the message." The voice came through clearer this time. A woman's tone, tired but unyielding. "This is the joint colony of Haven Reach. We are under attack by hostile forces, many dead. They take survivors. If any human finds this, do not forgive." The message ended in static. Omar whispered under his breath, "Haven Reach. That colony disappeared decades ago. People thought it was destroyed by raiders or swallowed by space storms." Ryan's jaw tightened. "Not storms. Not raiders. Something else." When the Aurora finally reached orbit around the barren moon, the crew saw the truth. The surface was scarred with deep craters and blackened remains of buildings. Shattered towers jutted upward like broken bones. No lights, no life, only ruins. Scan for survivors, Ryan ordered. The scanners swept the moon, but the results were grim. No life signs. Only faint energy readings buried under rubble. There, Myra said, pointing at her display. A hidden chamber. The beacon is still transmitting from that location. Ryan stared at the ruined world on the screen. He felt the weight of thousands of unspoken stories pressing down on him. He turned to his crew. Prepare a landing team. We are going down. The Aurora's shuttle descended through thin wisps of atmosphere and touched down near the ruins. Dust rose around the landing gear. Ryan led the way, with Myra and 2 security officers following. Their boots crunched on the lifeless ground as they advanced toward the collapsed structures. Inside the ruins, they found the chamber. The metal doors were half buried in rubble, but still intact. They forced them open and entered. The chamber was small, lined with damaged equipment. In the center stood the beacon, cracked but still pulsing faintly with light. Wires sparked as it repeated its endless cry for help. Beside it lay data logs, half melted but still readable. Ryan picked one up, brushing off the dust. The screen flickered to life, showing the final entries of Haven Reach. The settlers had fought hard. Their attackers had come without warning, ships blotting out the sky. They burned everything, killed many, and dragged survivors away. The last words written were simple: if anyone finds this, remember us. Do not forgive. Ryan closed the log and looked at his crew. No one spoke. There was nothing to say. He understood now. This was not just a mystery. This was a call to arms. The Aurora had uncovered a wound that had been hidden in the dark for decades. And humanity would not ignore it. The landing team stood in the chamber of Haven Reach, their suits dimly lit by the flicker of the failing beacon. The air was dry, filled with dust that had not been disturbed for years. Commander Ryan placed the cracked log device back on the pedestal and drew in a slow breath. This is more than ruins, he said. This is proof of what happened here. Myra crouched by the beacon, her gloved hands carefully touching the wires. It is remarkable this still works after so long. Whoever built it wanted the message to last forever. One of the security officers, Daniel, looked around the chamber uneasily. There are no bodies. No bones. Nothing. Where did everyone go? Ryan's eyes hardened. They were taken. The group fell silent. The logs made it clear the attackers had not only destroyed, they had enslaved. They gathered what data they could and returned to the shuttle. The flight back to Aurora was quiet, the weight of what they had seen heavy on every mind. When they re-entered orbit, Ryan ordered the ship to circle the moon while Myra worked to restore the logs. Hours stretched into the night cycle, until at last she called Ryan to the communications deck. I have recovered most of the final transmissions, she said, her voice steady though her face was pale. On the screen, recordings played. The settlers of Haven Reach had been a joint effort between humans and a peaceful alien race called the Loran. Their logs spoke of building homes together, farming the rocky soil, and creating a new start far from crowded human systems. For a while, it had worked. The colony had been full of laughter, children of both species growing together under the same sky. Then the entries darkened. Strange ships had appeared in orbit. The settlers described them as vast and cruel, marked with burning symbols. They came without warning, descending with fire and steel. The Loran and humans tried to fight, but they were outnumbered. Many were killed in the first assault. The rest were captured. The last recording froze the crew where they stood. A woman's face filled the screen, dirt and blood streaking her cheeks. Her voice shook, but her eyes blazed with strength. If any human finds this, she said, remember Haven Reach. Do not forgive the Zeeth. They came for us because we were small. They thought no one would care. Prove them wrong. The image flickered, then vanished into static. No one spoke for a long time. Ryan stared at the screen until the words carved themselves into his memory. The Zeeth. The name was new to him, but it burned like fire. Finally, Omar broke the silence. Sir, if this is true, then we have just uncovered a crime against both humanity and the Loran. The Zeeth wiped out an entire colony. And left their message buried, hoping time would erase it, Myra added. Ryan turned slowly toward his crew. We will not let it be erased. Prepare all data copies. Send the recordings back to Earth. Every colony, every station must hear this. Within hours, the message was encrypted and launched toward human networks. Across the void of space, the truth of Haven Reach began its journey home. Back on Earth, weeks later, the signal reached its destination. It spread like fire, shared across military channels, civilian news, and private networks. People gathered in homes and streets to listen. They heard the cries of the settlers, the plea of the woman, and the name of the enemy Zeeth. Anger rose like a storm. For years humanity had built colonies and tried to live in peace with their neighbors. But the image of Haven Reach shattered the illusion of safety. The people demanded answers. Who were the Zeeth? Why had no one spoken of them before? And most importantly, what would humanity do now? On the Aurora, Ryan and his crew waited as responses began to arrive. Messages from Earth Command filled the screens. They demanded full reports, detailed scans, every scrap of evidence. Some leaders wanted caution. Others already spoke of retaliation. Ryan sat in his chair, listening to the voices of distant admirals and governors. But his thoughts kept returning to the silent ruins of Haven Reach. He remembered the scorched ground, the broken towers, and the woman's face on the screen. That night, alone in his cabin, Ryan wrote his own report. He did not fill it with numbers and technical details. Instead, he described what he saw, what he felt, and what he believed. He ended it with a single line: if humanity ignores this call, we are not worthy of the stars. Back on the bridge the next morning, Myra reported new chatter across the networks. Colonies are forming councils. People are demanding action. Even rival factions are speaking together. Sir, it is spreading faster than we expected. Ryan nodded. It is not just a signal anymore. It is a spark. Through the viewing window, the barren moon of Haven Reach rotated slowly below them. Its scars glowed faintly in the starlight. The crew of the Aurora understood what it meant. This was not the end of a mystery. It was the beginning of something far greater. The distress call of a forgotten colony had been found at last. And soon, the galaxy would feel the answer. The message of Haven Reach spread faster than anyone had imagined. What began as a faint signal discovered by the Aurora became a storm across human space. On Earth, crowds gathered around public screens. They watched the woman's final plea again and again, her words echoing in every city. Do not forgive the Zeeth. Families that had never cared about distant colonies suddenly felt the pain as if it had struck their own homes. On Mars, in the great domed cities, miners left their shifts early and filled the plazas. They carried signs made from scrap metal, painted with bold letters, "Answer the call." In orbiting stations, workers sent their wages to military funds. Students volunteered in training camps. Farmers donated food shipments to the fleets. It had been centuries since humanity stood so united. Old disputes between nations and colonies seemed to fade in the shadow of Haven Reach. Humanity was not divided by borders anymore. It was bound together by fury. Admiral Stone, commander of the Earth Defense Fleet, stood in the Great Hall of the Council of Governors. He was a tall man with silver hair, his voice calm but filled with fire. The Zeeth believe we are weak, he told the council. They believe they can erase one of our colonies, and time will bury the truth. They are wrong. We are not a people who forget. We are not a people who forgive chains. Some governors shifted uncomfortably. One raised his voice. Admiral, you are asking for war. The Zeeth are unknown to us. We do not know their numbers, their weapons, their strength. Should we risk everything for vengeance? Stone's eyes burned. This is not only vengeance. This is survival. Today they took Haven Reach. Tomorrow they may take more. If we do nothing, they will think humanity will never rise against them. If we answer, the stars themselves will know what happens when you harm our people. The hall erupted with debate. Some urged caution, others cried for action. But outside, in the cities and colonies, the choice was already made. Factories began working day and night. Old warships, once retired, were dragged out of orbiting docks and rebuilt. Shipyards glowed with the fires of new construction. On the Aurora, Commander Ryan and his crew received reports from across the colonies. Myra read them aloud, her voice carrying excitement. Civilian fleets are offering transports. Volunteers are forming militias. Even the frontier stations are sending supplies. Sir, the response is enormous. Ryan felt a strange mixture of pride and sorrow. Pride that humanity was rising. Sorrow that it had taken tragedy to awaken them. Omar, the navigator, shook his head in disbelief. I have never seen unity like this. Not in my lifetime. People from every corner of our worlds are standing together. The Zeeth will not know what is coming. Daniel, the security officer, leaned forward. Do we know where to strike? We cannot fight shadows. We need to find them. Ryan answered quietly. We will. The Zeeth left their name behind. That was their mistake. Somewhere out there, someone knows who they are and where they hide. When we find them, humanity will answer. Weeks passed. Fleets began to form. The newly built ships were not the most advanced in the galaxy, but they were fast, rugged, and filled with determined crews. Civilians donated money, materials, even family heirlooms to fund the cause. No one wanted to stand aside. In training yards, old veterans taught new recruits how to fight in space. They spoke of past wars on Earth, of resistance, of survival, of never surrendering even when outnumbered. These lessons sank deep into the hearts of the young. Soon, whispers spread to other species as well. Alien traders heard the broadcasts of Haven Reach and carried the story to distant systems. The galaxy listened, some with fear, some with hope. In the quiet corners of space, oppressed peoples wondered if humanity might be the spark they needed. For centuries, the Zeeth had crushed small worlds, taking slaves and silencing voices. None had dared to rise. But now, a new power was stirring, one that answered a cry from the past with fire. Back on Earth, Admiral Stone stood before his assembled fleet. Hundreds of ships filled orbit, gleaming in the sunlight. Their hulls carried names painted boldly: Justice, Haven's Memory, the Unforgiven. His voice thundered across every channel. Soldiers of humanity. Today we do not march for conquest. We march for our people. We march for every child stolen from Haven Reach. We march for every voice silenced in chains. The galaxy will learn who we are. They will learn that when humanity hears a distress call, we do not turn away. We answer with all our strength. Across the ships, crews cheered. The sound carried through the void. On the Aurora, Ryan stood beside Myra and Omar as they watched the fleet assemble. For the first time since they uncovered the ruins, Ryan felt something new: hope. The Zeeth had unleashed something they never expected. They thought they had buried a small colony in silence. Instead, they had awakened humanity's wrath. And once awakened, it would not stop. The human fleet left orbit of Earth like a storm unleashed. Hundreds of ships stretched in formation, engines glowing as they accelerated into the dark. Their destination was a border system where scouts had traced Zeeth patrol routes. For many in the fleet, this would be their first journey beyond safe human space. Young recruits stared out of viewports at the endless stars, whispering about the enemy they had never seen. Veterans drilled them, teaching discipline and calm. But under every lesson lay the same burning truth: no one had forgotten Haven Reach. On the flagship Resolute, Admiral Stone stood at the center of the command deck. His eyes followed the streams of ships on the tactical display. Every point of light represented hundreds of men and women who had left their homes to fight. "Admiral," said Captain Lin, his second in command. "Scouts report movement ahead. A Zeeth patrol is entering the sector." The bridge fell quiet. The moment they had been waiting for was here. Humanity's first real encounter with the Zeeth. "Numbers?" Stone asked. "6 ships, sir. Light destroyers. They are not aware of us yet." Stone studied the screen. The Zeeth patrol was small, but this was no ordinary engagement. It was the first test, the first strike that would echo across the galaxy. "Bring us closer," he ordered. "But hold weapons until I give the word." The human fleet moved in silence, engines dimmed, formation spread wide like hunters circling prey. The Zeeth ships glided through the sector with casual confidence. Their hulls were sharp and black, marked with glowing red symbols. To them, this was routine. They had crushed colonies before. They expected no resistance. On the Aurora, Commander Ryan and his crew were part of the vanguard. Myra's voice was steady but tense. "They are scanning, but they do not see us yet. Their sensors are powerful, but they are not expecting so many ships." Omar leaned forward, eyes fixed on his display. "They think they rule this region. That arrogance will cost them." Ryan nodded, watching the enemy move without fear. For the Zeeth, this was just another patrol. For humanity, it was the beginning of a war. Then the Zeeth broadcast filled the channel. A voice, harsh and mocking, echoed across the fleet. "Unidentified vessels. You trespass in Zeeth dominion. Surrender your ships and crew. Resist, and you will join the fate of Haven Reach." The words struck like a blade. Everyone on the human ships heard them. Everyone remembered the ruined colony, the stolen people. Ryan felt anger rise in his chest. He turned to his crew. "They have no idea who they are speaking to." Admiral Stone's voice cut through the fleet. Calm, steady, commanding. "This is the fleet of humanity. We do not surrender. We do not kneel. We fight for Haven Reach. Open fire." The void erupted. Human ships broke formation and unleashed torrents of missiles and energy fire. The Zeeth patrol staggered under the sudden storm. They had expected fear, not fury. Their shields flared as the first destroyer broke apart in a blaze of fire. On the Aurora, Ryan gripped his chair. "Target the lead ship. Keep pressure on them." Myra's hands flew across her console. Beams of light shot from the Aurora's cannons, striking the Zeeth vessel again and again. Omar guided the ship through enemy fire, weaving with precision. The Zeeth tried to regroup, but the humans pressed harder. Boarding pods launched from several human frigates, slamming into enemy hulls. Marines in heavy suits stormed through, fighting in brutal close quarters. They planted charges, cut through corridors, and dragged prisoners back to their ships. For the first time in their long reign, the Zeeth faced an enemy that did not break. They faced an enemy that fought to end the fight completely. Within an hour, the battle was over. 6 Zeeth ships lay shattered, their wreckage drifting in silence. Not a single human vessel had been lost. On the flagship, Admiral Stone gave the order. "Broadcast the victory across all channels. Let every system hear. Humanity has struck back." The message traveled far beyond the battlefield. Across human space, cheers erupted. In distant colonies, people wept with pride. The story spread to alien worlds too. Whispers carried from trader to refugee, from slave to soldier. The Zeeth had been beaten by humans. On the Aurora, the crew gathered on the bridge, watching the remains of the battle float by. Myra broke the silence. "We did it. We showed them we are not prey." Ryan nodded, his voice firm. "This was only the first step. They will send more. But now they know. Humanity will not forgive. Humanity will not forget." Omar looked at the wreckage of the Zeeth ships. "Do you think the galaxy heard us today?" Ryan's eyes narrowed. "Oh, they heard us. And the Zeeth will hear us again, until every captive is free." The fleet moved on, leaving behind burning wrecks as proof of humanity's answer. The stars had witnessed the first clash. It would not be the last. The wreckage of the first Zeeth patrol still drifted in space when humanity pressed forward. The victory had done more than lift morale, it had given direction. The Zeeth were not invincible. They could bleed, and they could fall. Admiral Stone wasted no time. From the intelligence gathered in the battle codes taken from captured prisoners and data stolen from enemy systems, humanity learned of a mining world under Zeeth control. Reports said thousands of slaves worked there, humans among them, taken long ago from Haven Reach. The fleet changed course. Their new mission was not destruction alone. It was liberation. On the Aurora, Commander Ryan gathered his crew around a table in the briefing room. The air was heavy with tension, but also with purpose. "This world is called Vayner," Ryan explained. "The Zeeth strip it for resources. The labor comes from prisoners. Our orders are clear: we free them. We show the galaxy what it means when humanity arrives." Myra leaned forward. "Do we know what condition the captives are in?" Ryan shook his head. "We will not know until we are there. But we must assume the worst." Daniel, the security officer, tightened his fists. "Then we give them hope again." The fleet arrived at Vayner after 2 days of silent travel. The planet below was scarred and gray, its surface covered with massive mines and factories. Orbiting stations held guard ships, their red symbols glowing faintly against the dark. Admiral Stone stood at the command deck of the Resolute. His voice carried across the fleet. "Today, we do not only fight for ourselves. We fight for those who cannot fight. Let the captives know they are not forgotten." The attack began with precision. Human ships struck the orbital guards first, disabling their weapons before they could raise alarms. Boarding parties stormed the stations, cutting power and seizing control. Then the fleet descended toward the surface. On the ground, the mines erupted with fire as Zeeth soldiers rushed to defend. But they were met with human marines in armored suits, moving with determination and skill. The battle was fierce, yet the outcome was never in doubt. Humanity fought with a fury the Zeeth had never faced. Ryan led his team through the outer camp. The air smelled of ash and metal. He pushed through broken gates and entered the slave barracks. Inside, he found rows of thin figures, humans and Lauren, their faces gaunt, their eyes hollow. When the captives saw Ryan's uniform, they froze in disbelief. One of them whispered, "Humans, you came." Ryan knelt down. "Yes. You are free now. The Zeeth will not keep you here any longer." A silence followed, then cries broke out. Some wept openly. Others reached forward to touch Ryan's arm as if to confirm he was real. Myra stepped beside him, offering water and rations. "Eat, drink. We will take you home." The liberation spread across the mines. Everywhere the Zeeth had chained lives, humans broke the locks. Refugees poured from the camps, carried aboard shuttles to the safety of orbiting ships. On the Aurora, the medbay overflowed with survivors. Doctors worked tirelessly, treating wounds, healing broken bones, and calming frightened hearts. Ryan walked among them, offering words of comfort. Many clung to his hands, refusing to let go. One old Lauren elder looked at him with weary eyes. For years, we prayed for someone to come. We thought the galaxy had forgotten us. But you humans, you remembered. Ryan shook his head softly. We could never forget. Not when one of our colonies fell. Not when your people suffered beside ours. We will not stop until all are free. Word of Vaynar's liberation spread quickly. Traders carried stories across the stars, and whispers grew louder. Other oppressed species began to take notice. The humans were not conquering. They were not enslaving. They were freeing. In distant systems, alien envoys began seeking contact. Messages reached the fleet, offers of support, pleas for help, pledges to stand beside humanity. On the Resolute, Admiral Stone reviewed the transmissions. He turned to his staff. The galaxy is watching us. They see what we do. Every chain we break is another ally gained. The Z thought fear would silence the stars. Instead, our actions are giving them a voice. Back on the Aurora, Ryan looked out at the planet below. Smoke still rose from the mines, but for the first time in decades, the cries from the surface were cries of freedom. He felt the shift in his heart. This war began with vengeance, he told Myra quietly. But now, it is becoming something more. We are not only fighting for Haven Reach. We are fighting for every world like it. Myra nodded. And the more we fight, the less alone we become. The fleet departed Vayner, carrying thousands of freed souls. In their wake, they left ruins of Zeeth power and the spark of a growing rebellion. For the Zeeth, the loss of a mining world was a humiliation. For humanity, it was a promise that no cry for help would go unanswered again. The Zeeth Empire had ruled with fear for centuries. Worlds bowed, colonies disappeared, and resistance had been crushed before it began. But the humans were different. They had answered the call of Haven Reach, and now the galaxy was watching. Admiral Stone's fleet moved like a storm through Zeeth-controlled space. The ships had grown larger, stronger, and faster. Recovered survivors from Vayner had joined, bringing knowledge of the enemy's systems, supply routes, and weak points. The coalition was growing. Humans and freed aliens worked together as one, learning from each other, planning attacks with precision. On the bridge of the flagship Resolute, Ryan stood beside Admiral Stone, looking at a holographic map of the Zeeth sectors. Red markers indicated strongholds and supply hubs. Every one of them was a target. Where do we strike first? Ryan asked. Stone's eyes were sharp. The supply hub in Nyrek sector. If we take it, their fleets will have nothing to fuel operations. It will force them to fight us on our terms. Myra studied the display. Intelligence reports suggest their forces will try to regroup there. It will not be easy. Nothing worth winning ever is, Stone replied. The fleet jumped into the Nyrek system with precision. Zeeth patrols were already moving to defend the hub, but the humans had learned their patterns. Instead of charging, they split into multiple groups, striking simultaneously from different angles. The element of surprise worked in their favor. Human ships darted between asteroid fields, using them for cover. Missiles rained on enemy vessels while boarding teams prepared to infiltrate the stations. The Zeeth were confident, but they had not counted on humanity's strategy. Ryan led a boarding party onto the main supply station. The corridors were dark, filled with the hum of machinery. Zeeth soldiers confronted them, but the humans moved as a team, coordinated and relentless. Every attack was precise, every step planned. They freed captive workers and disabled the hub's defenses. Below in the station, freed captives looked on with wonder as humans fought. These were beings who had lived under Zeeth oppression for decades, now seeing strength and courage they had thought impossible. Many joined the humans, using their knowledge to sabotage enemy systems. Outside, the fleet tore through the remaining Zeeth ships. Explosions lit the void, and the red symbols of the enemy's empire fell silent one by one. By the end of the battle, the Nyrek sector was in human control. Supplies that once fueled oppression now belonged to the liberated. Stone addressed his crew over the fleet network. This is only the beginning. Today we broke one hub. Tomorrow we take the next. The Zeeth will learn that no empire built on fear can survive when its victims rise. The news of Nyrek spread faster than the battle itself. Across the galaxy, oppressed species sent messages of gratitude and requests for alliance. Ships began to join humanity voluntarily, adding strength to the growing coalition. On the Aurora, Ryan walked among the crew and freed captives. Myra showed him reports of new intelligence gathered from the station. The Zeeth High Council is panicking, she said. They did not expect humanity to coordinate this quickly. Some sectors are already rebelling internally. Ryan smiled slightly. Good. Let them feel the cost of underestimating us. Daniel, the security officer, glanced at the freed aliens helping repair the station. They trust us. We are not just liberators. We are a symbol. That matters as much as any weapon. Omar nodded. It shows that fighting with honor can inspire more than fear ever could. Meanwhile, the Zeeth High Council convened in their central citadel. Messages from Nyrek reached them, filled with reports of lost ships, captured soldiers, and liberated slaves. Their generals argued bitterly. Some wanted to retreat and regroup. Others insisted on crushing the humans immediately. But none had an answer for the growing resistance among their own populations. Worlds that once obeyed out of fear now whispered rebellion. The council realized that humanity had done more than fight, they had sparked hope. Stone looked at the stars beyond the bridge viewport. The galaxy is waking up, he said. The Zeeth believed fear was enough. But courage, hope, and unity are stronger than fear. And we have all three. Ryan stood beside him, looking at the distant systems they would liberate next. Haven Reach started this war. We are finishing it. Not for revenge alone, but for freedom. For every world, every soul who has suffered. Myra adjusted the displays, showing the next target sectors. The fight continues, but morale is high. Every system we liberate adds allies. The Zeeth will not be able to recover. Stone placed a hand on Ryan's shoulder. Today we broke one hub. Tomorrow, we break the Empire. Humanity has answered the call, and the stars will remember it. Ryan nodded, determination burning in his eyes. The galaxy was changing. The Zeeth had underestimated them. Humanity's wrath had become a force that could not be stopped. The remnants of the Zeeth Empire trembled under the weight of human determination. Systems that had been loyal through fear now chose freedom, inspired by the victories of the fleets that had once answered the call of Haven Reach. Admiral Stone's fleet approached the central Zeeth Citadel, a massive structure orbiting a gas giant. Its black hull glimmered under the star's light, yet it was no longer untouchable. Humanity had grown, not only in strength, but in alliances with species who had suffered under the Zeeth. The coalition was vast, united by a shared purpose. On the bridge of the Resolute, Stone addressed his crew. This is the final stand. We fight not to conquer, but to free. Every ship we command, every soldier we lead, fights for the galaxy itself. Remember Haven Reach, remember Vaynor, remember every world that suffered. Today, we end this empire. Commander Ryan stood beside Stone, watching the enemy citadel through the viewport. His thoughts traveled to the ruins of Haven Reach, to the faces of the freed captives, and to every ally who had joined them. Humanity had begun this fight to answer a single distress call, but now their actions had become a beacon of hope across countless worlds. Myra adjusted the fleet's formation on her console. Sensors detect multiple defensive layers, sir. They have concentrated every remaining fleet here. But their numbers are scattered. They are desperate. Stone nodded. Good. Desperation makes them predictable. The first strikes were precise. Human ships launched coordinated attacks on orbital weapons and shields. Alien allies disabled communication arrays and supply chains. Boarding teams prepared to infiltrate the citadel, carrying prisoners and sabotage tools. The Zeth soldiers fought fiercely, but every tactic they used had already been anticipated. Ryan led his team in a boarding pod toward the main citadel. The moment they entered, alarms blared through corridors lined with black metal and red lights. Zeth soldiers appeared in droves, but the humans moved as one. Every maneuver was precise, every attack decisive. They freed prisoners held in cells deep within the citadel. Humans and alien allies who had once been captives now fought alongside their liberators. Their knowledge of the citadel's layout proved invaluable, turning the enemy's defenses against them. Outside, the fleet tore through the remaining Zeth vessels. Explosions lit the void, creating a display of power that no empire could ignore. The citadel's shields faltered under combined pressure from all directions, and the central command tower fell into silence. Stone's voice rang across the fleet network. The citadel is ours. Humanity has struck the final blow. The Zeth Empire no longer controls the stars. On the bridge of the Aurora, Ryan and Myra looked at the battlefield with awe. Freed captives cheered. Alien allies sent signals of gratitude. Humanity had achieved more than victory, they had inspired a galaxy-wide awakening. Stone addressed all forces. This victory belongs to everyone who fought, to every voice silenced, to every world that suffered. We do not seek revenge. We seek justice and freedom for all. Let this be our legacy. Let every species know that if humanity hears a call for help, we will answer with all our strength. The news of the Citadel's fall traveled across the stars. Systems that had been under Zeth control began self-governing. Freed people returned to their home worlds or joined the coalition, determined to build a future without fear. Humanity's name became a symbol of hope, courage, and unwavering resolve. Ryan walked among the freed aliens and human volunteers. He saw children laughing where only sorrow had lived before. Adults worked together to repair the citadel and redistribute resources. For the first time, many saw a galaxy where cooperation replaced fear. Myra approached Ryan. "Do you think it is really over?" He looked at the stars beyond the viewport. "The war is over. But the galaxy has learned something more important. We have shown that one call for help can awaken the best in humanity. That lesson will last far longer than any battle." The fleet began its journey back to human-controlled space. Ships carried not only survivors but messages of alliance, promises of support, and symbols of unity. The humans had answered a single distress call, and in doing so, had reshaped the stars themselves. Admiral Stone's final orders echoed across the fleet. Return home. Rebuild. Prepare to protect the galaxy with wisdom and strength. Humanity's oath has been fulfilled, but our responsibility continues. Never again will cries for help go unanswered. That is the promise we carry among the stars. On the bridge of the Aurora, Ryan turned to Myra and Omar. Haven Reach started this, but we finished it together. Humanity has left its mark. Every being in the galaxy now knows, if a human hears a cry for help, we will rise. The three of them looked out at the vast expanse of space. Stars sparkled, no longer silent witnesses, but reminders of what humanity could accomplish when united. From a single distress call had grown a movement that would be remembered for generations. The galaxy had changed forever. And humanity's wrath had become humanity's legacy, a legacy of hope, justice, and unstoppable courage.